I think from a farming perspective, it's not always like the most respected profession somehow. And I think that it's also very hard to make money at it. And so there's this duality of like, we need food and farms more than we need so many other things, but they're pretty low on the bar for people in awareness level. And so our program, the sustainability aspect, is a financial one for me. I'm a young person trying to survive on Cape Cod. I can't survive off less than 25 bucks an hour almost, and that's in its who'd have thought, right? But to keep it sustainable, we have to fund at least one person running a farm, right? And so even if it's mostly volunteer labor, there's still got to be 1, 2, ideally 3 people getting paid for a full-time farm, even a small farm. So the hope is that we're going to make this profitable in the sense that the local food purchasing assistance grant plus, the plus grant, part of the grant, is going to be paying us for these donations. So we have a grant to cover, say, my salary for 1 year, but then the coming years, we don't know what's going to happen, how I'm going to get paid. And so the idea is that we're going to use this money, put it in our pocket for next year's salary so that we can become a sustainable farm. And as a teaching organization, the entire point of it, besides the food donation, is to teach people how to become more self-sufficient and avid growers themselves. So we're teaching while we're working, creating a workforce that actually knows how to harvest and knows how to plant and knows how to weed. And those things are basically making more growers for the community. And that is the sustainability aspect that I think of is the financial and the knowledge base to keep a farm going so that we can continue these donations.
I think the main aspect of gleaning for Farming Falmouth is the volunteers, because I'm not paid, I'm totally volunteer, and what's unsustainable is me at 9 months pregnant in August with my 3-year-old frantically trying to harvest 75 feet of green beans. That's not sustainable. So when we have a lot of volunteers and people are coming back, and because I do a lot of education in the field, here's how you harvest kale, this is what a good tomato looks like that he's going to pick tomorrow. These are the ones we can take. This is what squash looks like that you can take because it has a blemish. This is what we have to leave. It's a lot of education. If I'm not there, we can't glean most of the time unless somebody else who knows what they're doing can come. So having repeat volunteers is really the main part of sustainability. And then we would love to have it be more of an educational component, work with the high schools. We had one student from the synagogue in Falmouth come for her bat mitzvah work volunteer thing that she had to do as part of her program. And that was great. And so that would really, it would bring in a lot more energy, and it would make it possible for unpaid volunteers like me to do the work and train people the way Jenny was saying.
So we've had to grapple with this when we couldn't find a place to rent. So we ended up realizing that from the question of sustainability, we took a big leap and decided to go to the town and say, we want to stay here. We'd like to stay in Arlington, and we're going to need to buy a building. And if, we just want you to know that because no one will rent to us. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we then got all this money from the town of Arlington. Please stay here, and they put it towards helping us buy an old warehouse that we renovated. So we realized right then and there all the things we had to do, which meant we had to have a board of directors, we had to have a volunteer outreach program. We were all run by, when I came in 2016, there was 1.5 people on payroll, and that was just back-end stuff. The directors, the co-directors were volunteers 24/7, and everybody else was. So
What year was that?
in Arlington.
No, what year was that?
That was in 2016. There was only 1.5 people. So what we ended up doing was we ended up sort of using what I call us a nonprofit business now. And I do a lot of work in the nonprofit, bridging that partnership. That was what I did as an educator. So We hired a grant writer. We hired someone who was going to be in charge of volunteers, and we started a volunteer outreach program to corporations and groups. We work with synagogues, churches, etc. And we have a very strong board that represents, some of our communities, but mostly they're there to be ambassadors who are there to help us get our job done and get out there and try to make sure that we have people, individual donators. So we have a big, I would say a lot of community support that in the form both of people power. We will always say Food Link powered by people. That's true. But it's also powered by dollars, so you have to have that too.
I totally agree that it is about open communication and educating the volunteers or the people you work with, because it is really hard when you feel like you're the one that knows how to do it all, and it's not going to get done to the fullest extent if you're not there. So I've found it as a challenge, but also a good way to ensure that this is going to keep happening if I'm not at the farm. That everyone knows what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and also since the relationships with the pantries and other hunger relief organizations are already established, they know that they can text me or anyone else saying, "Can I come by today?" And we'll say yes. And what they're going to get, of course, is going to differ on the day, but at this point, with all the pantries we have and the different places we give out to, the excess food is completely going away. It's not wasted at all, and it goes to the employees, it goes to Too Good To Go, it goes to the pantries, it goes to Boys and Girls Club in Brockton, and
the pigs.
And the pigs get a lot less now, actually. But they're fine.
We have goats. We don't have pigs.
I've got pigs.
So I guess really just the community I have at the farm, everyone's my friend, it's amazing. And I think just the more I've spoken about it and how this is what I do, the more everyone contributes, and they're like, "Hey, Devin, I have a bunch of this, would you be able to use that?" I'm like, "Yeah." Or they'll just slap a donation sticker on it, and I'll see it the next day, and I'm, that's amazing, I wasn't even there for the washing, and someone was putting things aside for me. So really, I'm hoping that ensuring sustainability will be just continuing to talk about it.
I'm just going to do a quick time check. How are we looking on time?
Do you want to do questions?
Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
This isn't a question so much as observation, and this is not so much farming as I'm in the hospitality business, and my history with a number of corporate America sort of things, why there might be resistance to salvaging certain things and donating. Number one was that they don't want to institutionalize, they don't want to incentivize waste or overproduction. That often if you've got too much, then suddenly it's going to get distributed, and suddenly the workers might want to have an overproduction. The other was it had to do with the representation of their product. That if their product is leaving their business and going out into the community, and it now represents them. And again, this is often raw materials and or finished food, not necessarily farm raw materials. And then the third was liability issues. That was always a fear of so many, that if this is going to be transported and distributed in some way that we no longer have contact or control over, is that, am I liable in some way? So those are three different issues that make people or businesses resistant to participating in it.
Well, I mean, to just sort of address that, I know that to be true. In terms of what happens with things that get donated that have a name on it, for example, prepared foods, we cross out the name. But the truth is, all the produce, everything we unwrap. But I think John answered the liability, but that's not an issue anymore. But I really understand you're a for-profit and we're all nonprofit, and we totally get that. But we also know that there are rules and laws about temperature, and we are fastidious about all of that. And I think everyone has to be, to reassure you that if we're taking food from your kitchen, you know, the biggest education piece probably on the Cape is to tell people, okay, don't put it out there until you know you really need to have it out there, because once it goes out and sits on that table, nobody can take it home except your staff maybe or a guest, but you can't donate it because if it's out there, you can't. So that we found has been an issue for getting catered foods, leftovers, and it's just, you know, I'd love one of those cute little stickers that, you know, Adam has to show us how you can save food from caterers, because I know that, I know you want to, I know places want to, but they just can't quite wrap themselves around what they're supposed to do.
Anybody else? Tom?
Tom McDonald. I'm from Falmouth. I made the drive. Yeah, it took a little longer than I thought. But when I've talked to people about food recovery, they often think restaurants is the first place to go. And I guess I'm wondering what the reality of food recovery is from restaurants. I understand the grocery stores and the like, but most people assume restaurants are the place you got to go to get the food. And I'm just wondering what your perception of that reality actually is.
Do you want to talk about that?
You can, and then I will.
You go for it.
I've worked in a lot of restaurants. On my way to farming, I was a line cook for a long time, and I was lucky enough to land my first job working in a farm-to-table restaurant that already was composting well before people were talking about it. And we didn't ever make more waste because we thought it was, you know, we were pretty tight, and it was a tight run ship for that reason. Is like the sustainability piece was the reason we were doing it, and so it seems like overproducing for donation to that didn't seem like it was happening much to me in the worlds I was in, but it seemed like there's a lot of initiatives, but it takes a lot of teaming up. One restaurant I worked at, all the restaurants in town would once a week, the slow days. So Sunday you shut down, Monday there was a soup donation. So everybody did this, pushed everything into a pot from the weekend, and it made an amazing soup and sent it over to this soup kitchen. And so you could get soup from 6 different amazing restaurants, breads donated from the day olds, and there's hot soup available. And it's a nice way for restaurants to kind of keep pushing things into the pantries or into food rescue organizations without much liability, and they get to highlight their chef's ability, and they, you know, there's ways, but I think it's all creativity, and I think that's where, you know, sometimes people get stuck in their gotta get creative instead of just going by the book or what's already been done.
I don't know about in Falmouth, but on the vineyard where I used to live, the Island Grown Initiative had a lot of programs taking food from restaurants and turning it into free lunches that would be distributed on different days at the libraries and at the senior centers, and also into the schools. So that was one way. I think restaurant scraps, I get stuff from churches and restaurants for my pigs, and I don't know how the process of taking it for humans consumption would work in Falmouth if you don't have an organization that's willing to then cater it into something else. Maybe